Hello everyone, this is Christina Wallace and welcome back to my channel. I'm going to do this demo fully in cold porcelain, but in a way that is totally adaptable to Sugarpaste, and I will go into details over all the bits that are different. And if it works, I think I'm going to do that to most of my flower videos, simply because it would be just nice to get an extra skill of working with cold porcelain for anyone who works in Gumpaste. It's pretty cool, isn't it? And it goes without saying that you would probably learn the most if you watch the whole video throughout. So that's what I would recommend. Other than that, let's get going. So the very first thing I want to share with you really is this amazing little trick for middle of a flower without involving glue or drying or any of those things. And it's really sturdy when it's ready, as long as you don't get this middle thing right all the way through the ball and kind of keep it in the middle. It's fantastic, ready in seconds or in a minute or so, and it kind of withstands all the pulling and pushing that creating a large flower often involves. Okay, so the next thing you do, you add a little bit of a tint to your cold porcelain or gum paste. Go slowly, the same applies, don't overdo straight away, especially with darker colors. And here I'm measuring out and choosing middle cutter to cut the petals out with. You would see that probably I could have done better using the bigger petal. I don't know, you'll see what I mean. And with cold porcelain, it's not as important to clean the edges as it is with gum paste, but it's still a good idea. Otherwise, as you can see so far, the techniques are very similar, except with cold porcelain, because it's softer, you tend to use the sleeve a little bit more than, well, with gum paste you wouldn't use it, you would just use a green board. Personally, I like thinning my petals in stages. I find that kind of brings about the most realistic results. However, you might find that thinning it once would be absolutely fine for what you're trying to do. It's certainly more commercial. Bear in mind though, if you just thin it once but try to make it too thin, you might find that cold porcelain is a bit too delicate and it might just tear up. So play around with it. Don't set yourself any strict rules straight away. For those of you who haven't watched my last week's video, I've made a video comparing cold porcelain and gum paste from a point of view of someone who always uses gum paste and kind of wants to find out a little bit more about cold porcelain. So just in case I'm overlapping and kind of taking things for granted here and not explaining some obvious things, do please ask me questions. I always try to reply as soon as I can, and I always do reply. However, if you want to know more about the basics of cold porcelain, do check my video out. I'm going to link it up in the description, and hopefully you would find that useful. See, so far this difference between working with cold porcelain and gum paste is not that great, is it? What do you think? It's quite manageable, isn't it? And by the way, whatever paste you use, if you dry it on a metal spoon like this, and especially if you try to manipulate it like this, make sure you use a bit of corn flour. Otherwise, if it sticks to metal really tightly, the petal could look really funny when it's completely dry. Okay, so these are the dusts that I'm using. The black tops are decorative non-edible by Edible Art, so bear that in mind. The rest are good for both paste. And make sure you blend your dust really well. And here goes the magic of a flat brush over the veined pattern. And at this point, I always get loads of questions. Where did you get your veiner? Now, the veiner is by Sugar Art Studio. I've reviewed many of their veiners. I'm going to link up my reviews down below. If you're interested, have a look. However, I just want to say that cold porcelain responds a lot better to veiners than Sugarpaste does. So if you're using Sugarpaste and you don't get the same pattern, don't be alarmed. It's not you. Just to add, when I dust, I tend to just kind of pre-plan what I want to do, and then I go with my own taste and gut feeling as to what colors go well together and what don't. So if I plan something and it doesn't work, I tend to just go with what looks better, not with what I pre-planned. So now the assembly. I use PVA glue, just any white tacky glue would be absolutely fine. And here I found that the petals ideally could have been a little bit larger. I haven't made that many of them, but I think I'm going to still get away with it, you'll see. And here they are leathery consistency, which I find is the easiest way to work with cold porcelain at this stage. And yet they go around the cone so much easier than the sugar would. Sugar just is a lot less flexible at this stage. However, the tacky glue sets really fast, as I mentioned in my previous video. So you have to kind of position your leaf correctly, or if you position it not how you want it and then try to pick it up, you probably will struggle and tear your petal. So now we're coming to creating a calyx. It needs to be big enough to kind of overlay those gaps that were left. The gaps could have been eliminated if you'd made few more petals, but I just kind of didn't bother and decided to swing it. So this, I'm going to shape this calyx later. So at the moment it's quite thick. So this is the base for my calyx. You could get really sophisticated calyxes already in shape, but I like to shape my calyxes myself simply because, you know, then someone looks at them on a ready flower and they're not going to say, oh yeah, I know what carter she's used for that. So I'm trying to kind of make them more my own, if you like. And sometimes I run into all kinds of problems with it. So this whole thing is experimental. I've been cutting and shaping it for ages and ages and ages because I'm still kind of getting used to cold porcelain as well. So yeah, it's a bit of a, I'm not kind of demoing something I've done millions of times because I haven't. And so here's my calyx. I've kind of cut it to shape, and now here I use throughout the greenery on this work in this video, I'm using three colors. I use medium shade in the middle, then lighter one to the top and darker one to the bottom. And that theme pretty much goes throughout the greenery on all three examples. Because I don't see much point switching the colors of the same flower, of accessories to the same flower in the same arrangement. That probably won't work best, or at least that's not what I'm trying to do here anyway. But yeah, using three colors like this, it kind of gives it a nice 3D feel, I'm hoping. I don't know, let me know, does it work? Would you rather I have left it undusted? I don't know. But yeah, here I'm going to cheat and I'm going to retouch my little rose, my little rosebud, and pretend that this little bit of clay that I'm sticking in is kind of a petal that was underneath before. Now you could mix your cold porcelain with water and then retouch or smoothen things out with it. I don't know, like you would with some kind of a DIY job on your wall or something, and it, you know, just try not to get a feel for it, give it a go. It's actually quite easy, easier than it looks, though to get it perfect would require time and experience. Now this bit, watch carefully how I do it. I thread it through, just a piece of wire all the way through. I don't pull it back because it would misshapen it, it's a bit too sticky for it. And now having a hole in it, it quite easily just gets all the way to the top. There's a bit of a glue there for it to stick onto. And then all you do is kind of turn and twist. There's a term for it in sugarcraft. What do you use it for? Some, you know, some exotic flowers and the only word I could think of is twerking, and it's a completely wrong word. So what is this technique called? Anyway, it's the same technique. I forgot to include in this video, but if you use a bit of Nivea on your fingers at this point, it would be a lot easier. And also use the tape underneath as well. I've forgotten, so I've remembered later, because it tends to stick better to the tape. And then you just have to kind of work with it and then smoothen it with the water when you think you got it the best you could get it. And this also helps a little bit. It does give you a bit of time to work with it as well. It doesn't just go stiff straight away. And the best thing is that once you've dusted it and it's all ready, the next day you could bend the flower a little bit, as you could see from my pictures. So to be on the safe side, I leave it for a couple of hours before dusting. You probably could dust earlier. And then I'm going to repeat the whole thing with the smaller bud, just to show you some variety on this rose accessorizing, except by this point I just got really bored and kind of impatient with the whole thing. So I'm really cheating and cutting and adjusting this rose. So it's going to look really, really casual, perhaps more casual than I would have liked to. And as you could see here, you could really do fine work with cold porcelain in a way you probably wouldn't have been able to do it with with Gumpaste. And even if you had been able to, it'd be really, really hard to arrange it around other flowers without breaking it. So in that way, cold porcelain is lovely. I don't know, maybe I'm biased by now. So you could leave it like this, but I didn't, and I started playing with it and it looks a bit rubbish. But as I said, I was just going to experiment with this whole thing during this video. So the last bit I'm going to show you is how to do a calyx for the rose in separate little pieces. And with this I'm going to have a slightly different take on the whole thing. I'm going to make it more casual and more stylistic and decorative, less precise. Partially because I've just had a look at the time and it's getting a bit late and time to wrap it all up, but also because there are different takes on things, and let me know which one do you prefer. I mean, sometimes I look at flowers and I think, oh, they're a bit too casual for my liking, or at other flowers I look and I think, oh, they're a bit too perfect for my liking. So yeah, the whole point of the flowers that we make is really we just make it our own, and there are as many takes on it as there are artists, I suppose. That being said, this is the end of this video. Now I want to ask those of you who have no interest in cold porcelain whatsoever and like to work in Gumpaste, was this video useful to you? Did it achieve the purpose of teaching you what I was hoping to teach, cold porcelain or not? Your feedback would really help me, because I'm trying to decide on the direction of my future videos, and I want to see if in the future I should split my tutorials half-half, or just do it in cold porcelain, or maybe leave cold porcelain out. So please let me know. I would really appreciate